Get ready for truth and common sense. Join the Framers View on Rumble.com to be part of the chat. Be sure to click join and follow to help keep the Framer on the air. Watch the replay on theframersview.com or Rumble.com.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. It is happening to be a Monday right here in the United States of America. We are doing what's called the Framers View. Thank you. Marie mentions to me, I never say thank you. I did. Just now. I do appreciate you being here. Hey, I've got so much stuff today. It's unbelievable. And I want to say right up front, just so you know and you're aware of what's going on, I'm not going to be here for the next few days after today. And I'll get into that a little bit towards the end of the show, just to let you know what's going on and probably why. So that's what that is for that piece. So look, if you can't beat them, you know the old phrase, if you can't beat them, lie. That's the title of our show today. And the reason it's the title of the show, I had so much material today for the show that I was like, what am I going to do with all this? And usually I take some of these things and I push them off to the next day and the next day so that I've got it. Things that aren't really time sensitive, but I don't have a show for a few days. So I figured, well, it'll be really stale, so we won't do that. But it is really crazy. The push. I will never understand how the Democrats can constantly, completely, absolutely just ignore the truth, the facts, everything that's going on. It's troubling in one way, but another way, it's just clear they can't do it. You know, it's kind of like there's some people can't jump out of an airplane with a parachute. Can't do it. You know, some people can't stand spiders. I think they taste great. But anyway, so we have some funnies today at the beginning of the show. We have some things that aren't funny, but are kind of funny because of how stupid they are. We have some stories on Eric Adams. Eric Adams, of course, being the guy that is the mayor of New York City. Man, there's some similarities to what's happened to Trump. With that, Dan Goldman has proven, Dan Goldman, who's a congressman, Democratic congressman, he has proven that anyone can become a politician. Charles Manson could have probably done that instead of go to prison. Just saying. There's a panic about Doge. It's insane, but it's kind of, it feels good because we know things are getting done. Trump really doesn't care what people think, what people are trying to do to him. He is impervious to these kind of things. They used to call Bill Clinton the Teflon president. And I think he may fall into that category. He really is unaffected, at least from the outside. I haven't been in the White House every day since he became president. Wait a minute. I haven't been in the White House at all. But anyway, since he's been president. But here's the point. He's going to get the job done, whatever it takes. We know that everybody's going to try to stop him that opposes him. They're going to do everything they can. And as I mentioned to my lovely Marie today, I said, you know what? The concern is that Trump has to do everything possible in the first two years because we don't know what's going to happen. I think if we really show success, and we're going to show success, but we're also going to show people think he's failing. It's just stunning. And we'll talk about that. But if he doesn't win, if the Congress doesn't hold the Senate and the House, I can guarantee you if the House takes over with the Democrats, impeachment will begin the first day of them taking office. It's just write it down in stone. It's what it's going to happen. So that's that. Now, here's another thing to consider. And that is that as all this is going on, everything Trump's doing is making an attempt trying to fix the country. It doesn't happen overnight. I've said this many, many times. I'll repeat it again because I can repeat things because I'm not lying. It's easy to remember when you're telling the truth. So here's the truth. The truth is that when Ronald Reagan took over in the White House in 1981, December 20th, 1981, he had what was clearly a mess. Interest rates, 15, 18, 20% interest rates. Inflation was through the roof. And he started working on it. And he was starting his campaign for his second term when things were finally taking hold. Yeah, took about 2.5, 3 years for things to really get going. Now, if you ask the Democrats, well, we told you, Trump isn't going to reduce any prices. The prices are going up, and it's his fault. I got another fault story for you in a minute. But this is what we experience. This is what we have going on in this little world that we call America. And the hate. Remember, hate destroys. Hate destroys. So, and by the way, Florida is looking at a new bill, which you're going to love this story. Especially, we've got a little cabin down in Florida. And I'd love to see the property taxes go down. But that's what we'll have. First, I've been thinking a lot. Now I sound like somebody that was a singer. I won't mention her name because she doesn't deserve it. I've been thinking a lot about this idea of Trump taking over Canada. And, I was thinking to myself early on, this is crazy. And then as you go along and you think about it, it kind of makes sense. And then you study, you look at, you determine what is really happening right now. What's happening in the Canadian world for these people? The medical issues, the time of waiting for help, people that are dying because they couldn't get help soon enough. The economy's in a shambles. They really don't have anywhere near the benefits we have. They think they do. I will say this. You go to Canada and everybody's friendly and everybody's relatively happy. I've gone skiing in Canada. It's magnificent. But I think it could be a good thing. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit, thinking about a lot of it over the year. And then I started thinking, okay, so let's do 50 states right now. We got in the United States. We take a look at those 50 and you say, well, what if we add those states of Canada? What do we do? Well, we take a look. No, it's this way. I always do this wrong. We take a look at that. You got 50 stars there. See those? See those? Well, there's 10 provinces. I don't think I even realized there were a total of 10, but there are. I won't name them all because I can't remember them. But there's 10 provinces. Now, those 10 provinces could become states, part of America. We add 10 to the number. You might notice that you could put those numbers up there. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the top to bottom stars. If you got 5 stars and you're adding 10, you're just adding 2 rows. You make it a little tighter in there and everything's perfect, and we've got 60 states. And why I suggest we don't want Canada to become the 51st state is if they become totally liberal and we've got an electoral college that there's a lot of votes for that section, that could be bad for Republicans because we know that America is divided, but it's divided by New York, let's call it the Eastern Seaboard, and Canada, California, Oregon, and Washington. We should have it 10. It'd be pretty balanced. It's kind of the same thing in Canada. You go up to Calgary, there's not a bunch of liberals there. There's a bunch of cowboy hats, a bunch of cowboy boots, kind of like if you go to Wyoming. But that's what I was thinking about with that. And here's the thing on my little notes. I have notes. 10 provinces, we make 60 states. And I mentioned earlier, I think that deep down inside, the Canadians want this. It's not as crazy of an idea as everybody thinks it is. The same with Greenland, which is frozen, and Iceland, which is green. I've never understood how that happens either, but that's that. So that's the thoughts for the day. Now we go to the news. Every once in a while, there are comedians that come into focus, and those comedians say funny things. And in fairness, even though it's negative towards Republicans, it's funny because it's lighthearted humor. That's what comics are. Jimmy Fallon is a good example of that, if you watch him on Fox on Saturday nights. And these guys, they really, when you think about it, they're more aware of politics than most people. Maybe not as much as my regular viewers or regular viewers of other shows. But it's clear that comedians keep track of these things. So there was a comedian that was talking about Tulsi Gabbard. And this is just classic. Watch this, I think you'll enjoy it. Let's do that.
Tulsi Gabbard was confirmed as Director of National Intelligence. Question, what makes Tulsi Gabbard uniquely unqualified to coordinate the intelligence community and prevent another 9/11?
Is it that she's been credibly accused of being a Russian asset?
Intelligence experts said that the new head of U.S. intelligence, quote, lacked experience in the field, embraced Russian conspiracy theories, and showed sympathy for dictators like Vladimir Putin and Assad. She does have that cool witch hair, though. You gotta give her that. She looked like one of them sexy.
Yeah. I like that. That's funny. So in case you haven't been paying attention, which you don't have to because I help with that, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, we still have to get Kash Patel in. That's probably going to happen this week. Basically, everybody's coming through. Thank you, House, Senate, especially, getting these things done. We still have to deal with one really big piece, and that's the budget and all of the things with that great single bill. Great, big, beautiful bill, I think is what he called it. But that's what we're going to do for the next week here, 2 weeks. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And I think the Democrats will have realized they're not going to win. So that's why I said, if you can't win, lie. If you can't beat them, lie. So that they're going to just bloviate, just completely bloviate and keep going with it. So part of funny is tragic. You know, when I do a story, I do my very best to review it. I've told you that I have about 17 tabs. I do more than that actually now. I've subscribed to some more news. But I've got all these tabs, and when I get a story, I look at that story and then I go to the other tabs and I see if those stories are the same. And then I try to figure out what's the real truth. What's the honest truth? Kind of like what we're going to find out about JFK once that comes out here in a week or two, or I think that's going to be April, or maybe it's March 1st, whenever it's going to be. But yesterday, there was on TV, Margaret Brennan. She is a CBS news person, Face the Nation. And she said the dumbest thing. It's kind of funny because she said it to Marco Rubio. And you know, I remember a lot of things in history. I study history. That's my passion. And what was said by Margaret Brennan was not only stupid, but Marco Rubio took a big shot. You may have seen this, but if you missed it, here it is.
Well, he was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it. And you know that the censorship
I have to disagree with
was
you.
specifically about the right.
No, I have to disagree with you. Free speech was not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted by an authoritarian Nazi regime that happened to also be genocidal because they hated Jews and they hated minorities and they hated those that they had a list of people they hated, but primarily the Jews. There was no free speech in Nazi Germany. There was none. There was also no opposition in Nazi Germany. They were a sole and only party that governed that country. So that's not an accurate.
Okay, what do you think of that, Margaret? How could you say that? You know, how could she not know that and be sitting in a chair getting paid the massive money that she gets paid to do that show? To say that? I mean, we all know take charge of the press and indoctrinate your kids. That's communism. That's Nazism. That's socialism. That's all of those type of things. That's not the way America works. But that is what has happened. And Margaret Brennan, to not know that, she had to feel like an idiot. Maybe she didn't. The truth of the matter is she probably didn't feel like an idiot because, well, gee whiz, they think they know it all, and Marco Rubio doesn't know what he's talking about. That's probably more true than I might even believe or want to believe. So that was pretty stupid on her part. And you'd like to think when they turn off the cameras and she takes off the microphone and she walks out of the studio, is somebody standing out there going, did you really say that on national TV? And her response would be, yeah, I did, and it was stupid, but we only have 12 viewers, so it doesn't matter. I'm just saying. Speaking of 12 viewers, some people, I mentioned to you that, you know, anybody can be a politician. And the proof of the matter for that situation is Dan Goldman. He's a congressman, Democrat. Honestly, I don't know where he's from. I think it may be Mars. It could be Jupiter. It could be Uranus. I won't go further with that. But my point is that Dan Goldman is so scared of Musk, and he insists that Elon Musk is in charge. Watch this.
But what about that argument from Congressman Burleson? President Biden had submitted a budget request of $55 billion for management advisory. The argument is, hey, if you can get the greatest innovator of our time to come in and look at this for free, why not?
Well, the problem is, and you should ask Congressman Burleson this, he has no idea what Elon Musk is doing. I have no idea what Elon Musk is doing. You have no idea. The president doesn't know what Elon Musk is doing. All we know is what he tells us. And how can you determine in the span of hours that something is waste, fraud, and abuse? That requires follow-up. There's no accountability. There's an entire subcommittee on the Oversight Committee, right, which is related to DOGE. What are they doing in terms of accountability and oversight? Congress has just yielded all of its power. The Republicans have just handed over all of congressional power and oversight to Elon Musk.
Are they doing what the Government Accountability Office said they should, though? Because there was a report last year. No area of the federal government is immune to fraud. We estimated that the federal government could lose $233 billion to $521 billion annually to fraud.
To fraud. $521 billion. I don't know. I think that's probably a scary number if you ask me. And this is what, first of all, Goldman's saying nobody knows what he's doing. Even Trump doesn't know what he's doing. It's just, okay, if you're not winning, lie. It's clear that he's either knows he's lying or is the dumbest human being on the planet, along with the rest of the news and Democrats. To say that Trump doesn't know what he's doing, what Elon Musk is doing, what Elon Musk is doing is exactly what Trump asked him to do. And the accomplishments that he's having, Trump knows about. And for him to make the comment that nobody knows it is just wrong, because guess what? You can go to the Doge X account. You can go to Doge in the government. There's a Doge website. You can see what they're doing. He clearly doesn't know how to read, which is possible. But for him to say that, it's just patently stupid is what it really is. So with that said, MSNBC is having a coronary, and of course brings on their little idiots to talk about how bad things are. And this is all about, so we've got Doge, and that's, he's doing stuff nobody knows what he's doing. That's number one. Number two, we have federal prosecutors that are resigning because of what he's done, because they're letting Doge happen, and they're letting Eric Adams get out of the office. These are just crazy things, but they're not crazy at MSNBC. Watch this.
Shelby Talcott, a White House correspondent for Semaphore. It's good to see you again, Shelby. So to the point I was just discussing with you, Mish, at least 7 federal prosecutors have resigned over this Adams decision. Did the Trump administration expect this level of DOJ resistance?
I don't think they did. This was a dramatic standoff that I think nobody was really expecting. And what's interesting is throughout this entire 48 hours, because it really has only been over the past 2 days, the president himself has shrugged off this controversy. He told reporters that he had nothing to do with it, while also arguing that, the Justice Department believes that a dismissal was necessary because the case didn't have merit. And he also reiterated something that we've heard from him before, which is his argument that this case against Eric Adams, like his own cases, were politically motivated. And so he's consistently tied himself to Eric Adams in that manner. And he repeated that from the White House this week.
We already know that. We already know that this is. So Mayor Adams, which I'm no big fan of his, but he made comments about immigration. It's out of control. The federal government has to do something about this. It's a mess. Biden isn't doing anything about it. And all of a sudden, they're indicting him. Who has that ever happened to before? A few other people over in the past. But most recently, who is that? Oh, DJT, Donald J. Trump. That's who did it. That's the guy that did this. That's the guy that was saying things that everybody didn't like, so let's prosecute him. Let's make him so miserable he won't run for office. And then that didn't work. So then they took him to court, and they tried him, and they found him guilty, and nothing happened with that. Nothing happened. He was impervious to it, because the public, you and me, those of us who are paying the taxes, have said, you know what? This isn't right. When we saw that Merchan wasn't allowing evidence to come in that was exculpatory for Trump, you got to say, wait a minute, what are we doing here? Of course, we know what we're doing here. We're letting this craziness happen, and nobody's doing anything about it. Now, why was Eric Adams put into the spot? Because of the things he said. But then DOJ said, we want the cases dropped. And they did it without prejudice, which means they could bring it back. With prejudice means you can't bring this case back up. Without prejudice means you can bring it to the fore again. So to continue with this story I just showed you, this is Eric Adams speaking on Fox and Friends in the morning, with Holman on the dais, sitting there on the sofa. I think they call it the curved sofa or something like that. But watch this.
Imagine him going inside saying that the only way Mayor Adams is going to assist in immigration, which I was calling for since 2022, is if you drop the charges. That's quid pro quo. That's a crime.
If he doesn't come through, I'll be back in New York City, and we won't be sitting on the couch. I'll be in his office, up his butt, saying, where the hell is the agreement we came to?
I'm curious how you interpret the optics of this pairing, because it seems unusual considering Mayor Adams is a Democrat and his federal case has absolutely nothing to do with immigration.
Yeah, it is definitely notable and really unusual.
Let me just point this out before we go on with this. It does have to do with immigration. The case started because Eric Adams had the just nonsense idea to say something about the fact the federal government wasn't doing anything to help protect the New York City and America. It was out of control. And he said it. And then the prosecutions began. So I'll continue.
And that joint appearance with Tom Homan and Eric Adams was a little bit tense, actually, I felt. But, I thought was interesting was the original Justice Department filing requesting that these charges be dropped didn't say that they wanted the charges dropped because the case lacked merit or evidence. Rather, they argued the case was politically motivated and impeded on the mayor's ability to work with Trump on immigration enforcement and was too close to the mayoral election. And so I thought that was really sort of a key part for people to remember when they're weighing why this is all happening, because you're right. It is unusual for a Republican president to be pushing something, with a Democratic mayor.
Oh, see, that's their problem. So their problem is this. These people don't understand Trump. Trump, in reality, was a Democrat. The same as Ronald Reagan was a Democrat. Same with Tulsi Gabbard was a Democrat. Same with RFK. While he's still a Democrat, he's kind of a Republican. He just doesn't want to say it and be completely cut out of the Kennedy family. But all of these things that happen and go on, and them to say, well, it seems a little odd that Donald Trump would support a Democrat candidate or politician. No, it isn't. Trump really doesn't think politics. He thinks business and transactional events. That's what he does. He does it day and night, every day. He does this. He goes on and on and on, never stops. He's just successful. And he's going to keep doing it. And this next piece from this MSNBC idiot is a corker. So basically, we're just going to keep barreling on.
Doge is just barreling ahead. And now I do anticipate that as these cuts continue, because they are going to continue and they're going to hit virtually every agency. This is a top-down effort from every aspect of the federal government. I do anticipate that there's going to be increasing pushback from Republicans. We're already sort of quietly hearing about it, and it's only going to continue once Republicans realize that this is affecting their districts and their constituents. But from the presidential side, their argument is this needs to happen. And so far, there hasn't been enough vocal pushback from Republicans for them to hit pause on anything. And again, I think we talked about this last week. This is sort of how Elon Musk operates. He comes in and he bulldozes the entire thing. And even if it means that things that maybe shouldn't be cut get cut.
Yeah, well, they should be cut. Now, I think even Elon Musk, when he was in the White House with his kid at that press conference, he made the comment. He says, we're going to make mistakes and we're going to go back and fix them. And the mistakes will be different mistakes than what the Democrats think. The Democrats think just the idea of Trump is bad enough, but then you've got Doge and Elon Musk, which is even worse because he just changes things and nobody knows he does it. That doesn't happen. When these things occur, they occur because he talks to Trump and Trump allows it. And there's going to be fights, there's going to be lawsuits. He's going to win some and he's going to lose some. And for them to say that Elon Musk is just barreling through, yes, he is. Didn't I mention to you before, we've got 2 years to accomplish this. That's like a nanosecond with all the things that have to be accomplished. So where are we today? Well, we're making changes. I just saw a story before the show started, a story about the fact that the education department has had some cut in their budget already. Waste, fraud, and abuse. And that's what everybody voted for. That's what they wanted. That's what we wanted. Now, a little bit ago, I did a story with Dan Goldman, and I've got one of these, like the commercial, but wait, there's more. The more is this. Dan Goldman, these are lies. I'm going to narrate this as we go through this. There's a few of these I want you to see, and I'm going to narrate them for a reason. I want to point these things out and not let them just slip by of these lies that he's saying. And the first piece here is him talking about Elon Musk is doing all of these things and the costs are just going up. Watch this.
I have repeatedly pointed out that through all of the executive orders, through all of the executive actions, the barrage of executive actions that Donald Trump has made in his first 3 weeks, not a single one addresses the economy.
So
in fact, the only one is prescription drug prices are going up. Cost of eggs are going up. He's not doing anything. And yet he thinks he has some mandate to put Elon Musk in charge of the federal government when really he won the election, as you pointed out, based on making life more affordable. Inflation is up today. Donald Trump is hurting the lives of working Americans.
Guys, you know this. The folks that watch this show, whether it's live or recorded, you're watching it because you want to get the news of the real news and get the real story. He says the prices have gone up. Prices are going up. Well, let's see. Trump came into office 3 days short of a month ago. He came in on the 20th. The prices couldn't have gone up because of Trump. The price of eggs have been going up for a long time. I just bought 2 packs, and this is cheap by standards. The packs of 24 eggs that you get at Costco. I went in there hoping I'd find some eggs, and they had a few left. And they were going like hot. Everybody was running into where the eggs were to buy eggs. It's kind of like toilet paper, except for you don't fry toilet paper. Well, you could try that, but I don't know how that works. Anyway, so this is a case of him talking about the price of eggs going up. I paid for 2 packs, which would be, of course, 4 dozen eggs. 4 dozen eggs cost me $18. 4 dozen eggs. Now, it doesn't matter when I was a kid because there's been inflation and stuff. We bought a dozen eggs for 25 cents. That's where we are today. Now a dozen eggs are $9.50 basically. No, it's not right. $4.50. You got to divide it by 4. $4.50. $4.50 a dozen. Now, I can afford that, and hopefully the folks that watch this show are in a position that can afford it. But there's people out there that can't afford it. And there's a lot of things like that. But it has nothing to do with Trump and the prices going up because of him. He hasn't even had a chance to fix it. In fact, I mentioned earlier in the show and reminded you that it took Reagan basically 2.5 years to start affecting a change. It takes time. Rates went up while Reagan was in office because they had to keep raising it. They didn't really have to, but they did. And when you cut the rates, guess what happens? Inflation goes up. When we're in this kind of a situation. It's really kind of scary. But what's really scary is Dan Goldman talking about somebody needs to fix this. I'm not kidding you that these are the things that Dan Goldman uses to prove how stupid he is.
The government's saying someone's got to do this.
Absolutely. And I agree. I mean, we need to root out waste and fraud in our government. We need to make our government more efficient. The question is, how are we doing it? And rather than do an analysis, whether it be Elon Musk or someone else using modern technology, which the federal government does not.
Okay, stop there. Number one, we have to review it, and we have to do this and have to do that, and we have a committee, and then nothing gets done, and the public forgets about it, and they get away with it. Then he says, we don't have that technology. Well, what the hell do you think that guy is that you hate has in his pocket? Technology, Elon Musk, and Doge. They've already got this. He doesn't get that. He does. He just doesn't want to admit it. And we go on.
To identify suspicious expenditures, then you do an analysis, then you come back to Congress and say, hey, this is fraud and abuse. We'd like to rescind this money because Congress has the power of the purse. Elon Musk does not. And so the problem is that he is just completely recklessly and unfettered going through every federal government agency while he has so many conflicts of interest.
And this is the other thing that they're going to keep doing. Conflict of interest. He doesn't care. Do you understand that? He doesn't care about anything. He doesn't need to go look in the government to be able to figure out how to make money. I think he kind of got that figured out by being the richest man in the world. This is the guy that created PayPal. This is the guy that's done so many different things. This is the guy that lands a rocket back in a cup holder at the launch site. That's technology, and he gets it, he being Elon Musk. But no. Can't let that happen. But the problem is that we have these people like, and this having a committee and reviewing these things and take it to Congress, and Congress votes on it and then decides what's going to be cut. We can't afford that, first of all, to play that game. And you've got Democrats, they're going to say, no. You think they're going to look at that and go, yeah, we shouldn't be spending that much money. Maybe we should stop it. They're not going to do that. They never have. Spend. And by the way, so do the Democrats. You know, you'll never hear me say, so do the Republicans. You'll never hear me say that it's only the Democrats that waste money. No. And I'll show you evidence of that in a minute. Because I told you, all politicians will disappoint you. But there's also a proof to my statement. I'll show you that. So, Trump's usurping the Congress. And is he? I don't know. Is it legal? Yeah, probably. Well, let's see. We'll find out. But here's a final little piece with the genius, Dan Goldman.
The problem is that Donald Trump is essentially paving the way by firing everyone that he doesn't like, putting his own lackeys in to abuse and weaponize the country. Wait a minute, to weaponize the federal government, to help Elon Musk and the billionaires, to hurt working Americans, and to go after his political enemies. It's a gross abuse of power, and it's a danger to our democracy. So right now, that is the 5-alarm fire.
Oh, it's a 5-alarm fire. There's nothing he's saying that makes any sense at all, except for to his idiots. First of all, every president goes into office and he brings his lackeys in, as we heard Dan Goldman say. They all do that. You know, when you look at what Joe Biden did, he said, I'm going to have a woman of color as my vice president. Well, that's what he brought. He didn't bring any gray matter. but he definitely brought some people in. Karine Jean-Pierre, what an idiot she was. And then you look at Caroline Levy and you think, holy cow, look at the difference here. They all bring in their people, right or wrong. You know, why people don't get this, I don't understand. But presidents have an amazing amount of power, and they can use it good or bad. In Trump's case, he just wants to make America great again, and I think he's doing a good job at it. And I think Elon Musk is going to do some really good things with what he does. And he's going to make mistakes. That's just plain fact. Well, with that said, there's a little more to this than that. And I mentioned that one of the points is that they have a group of people that will be upset, disappointed, whatever you want to call it, within a world of all of the changes that happen, and people aren't happy about what is occurring. And the example is these cuts are affecting a lot of people. Now, I'm going to show you this, and it's important for you to first hear this, and then I'll make a point with you about this. This is them talking about the Republicans being upset. Watch this.
Hill, what concerns are being heard, however quietly, from some Republican lawmakers?
Yeah, Chris, we're seeing what a difference it makes when the pain of President Trump's executive actions hits home for some of his allies in Congress, his Republican allies. The idea of government spending cuts and spending freezes sounds good in the abstract, but when you get specific, that's when there are real consequences. And that's when we're seeing some simmering angst among Republicans that he might be using too blunt an instrument here. One example is NIH reductions to indirect costs for research. In addition to others like Senator Katie Britt, I talked to Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana. He told me he worries it'll hurt universities like those in his state without big endowments. He said he wants people in Louisiana to benefit from research dollars so that they don't all go to places like Massachusetts and California. In addition, you have this new group of House and Senate Republicans, most of whom represent rural districts and states, introducing a bill to save the USAID Food for Peace program. This comes as Trump and his billionaire ally Elon Musk are trying to dissolve USAID. They want to save it by moving this program into the Department of Agriculture. Why? Their farmers sell crops to the government and make money off of them. Take a look at what Congressman Tracy Mann of Kansas said. Quote, for 70 years, Kansas and American farmers have played an active role in sending their commodities to feed malnourished and starving populations around the world. He calls it a free gift from the American people that will help vulnerable communities.
Guys, think about, you may not have thought about this while you're watching this, but here's the thing you got to recognize. Trump is going to upset everyone because there's waste and abuse everywhere. The Democrats and the Republicans are going to push back. Mitch McConnell said, all the prices are going to go up because of tariffs. All the prices are going to go up because of Trump and the decisions he's making. Of course, Mitch McConnell is just a Democrat wearing a Republican hat, not America Great, Make America Great hat. But this is what we're involved in, what we're talking about. A craziness that is unending. A craziness that goes on and on and on. And the Republicans are going to be unhappy about it. The Democrats are going to be happy about it. And it proves that Trump's getting the job done along with Doge. It's total proof. There's complaints from both sides. They can't blame him for making decisions and changing things based on simply what is going on against Democrats. They can't do that. Katie Britt, she's one of the new bright stars in the Republican Party from North or South Carolina, I'm not sure where. But she's going to be unhappy because they're going to cut some spending with the NIH that's in their state. Too bad. That's the way it's going to work. There's going to be people that are going to lose jobs. That's just what happens. That's what happens when you have a situation like this. So we'll find out. We'll see what goes on over the next, few months. But Trump and Musk and all of the people that are in favor of making America great again have a great opportunity to get the job done. So let's move on a little bit over to another piece. When Marco Rubio, and other people talk about certain things, one of them was the discussion about Europe and how they're becoming basically a censorship country, world, in Europe and in UK. And they're cutting off all the left and the right, not letting people talk. You saw the video I showed with Margaret Brennan, where she was claiming, that what he was saying was what they did in Russia and Germany before World War II. No, that's what Germany was doing, was cutting off the press from saying anything he didn't want said. And that's what the European area is doing. So then you have this story about the fact that Marco Rubio made these comments.
You have Trump's suggestion that he will meet with Putin first. Zelensky is worried where he fits in. NATO is worried if they'll even be in the talks. Will they be left out of any conversations? What are you hearing about these concerns?
Before we go on with that, I'm sorry, this was a different video that I put into here. This is about all the people, all the organizations, all the ABCs, all the alphabet organizations, the UN and Ukraine. Ukraine's going to be involved in this whole thing with the negotiations, but they're making claims and everybody's worried. Well, the reason they're worried is because they know that Trump can go in and solve this, and they want to be able to have credit for it. And he's just going to get the job done. We'll continue.
For him to claim that the biggest threat to Europe is within and their problems with democracy, when Russia has invaded a European country, nobody agreed with that analysis here at the Munich Security Conference. They also noted, the Europeans that I was sitting with while we listened to that speech, quite a bit of hypocrisy for the vice president to come and lecture the Europeans about democracy when we've got a lot of problems with our democracy at home. No, it's not quite the right statement. We have a problem with democracy, but it has nothing to do with the Republicans. And what was said and the things that are being spoken outside of this country and in this country by the Republican Party is just telling the truth. And they can't stand that. They cannot stand it. So you got Europe, you've got Ukraine, you've got censorship, all of these things that's going on. And then you've got Trump working in the Middle East, along with Netanyahu. I mean, look at the pieces of this puzzle. You got a Secretary of State saying, hey, this is a mess, guys. And my biggest worry is about what's happening within in Europe. That's what he's saying. And then you've got what's going on in Israel, where Trump is getting deeply involved, along with Netanyahu, and working together. And then they bring up Iran, which is, I guess, a problem for everybody else. But look at this. This is in Israel. Rubio and Netanyahu pledged to curb Iran. Secretary of State met with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem on the 16th, just yesterday, where the two vowed to combat Iran's nuclear ambitions. Netanyahu said after the meeting that he and Rubio had a very productive discussion on several issues, none more important than Iran. Now, the reason he said that is very clear. What's happening with Hamas and the Houthis and all the people that have been attacking Israel, all of those people, it's all fed financially by Iran. And by the way, I watched part of Ben-Hur yesterday. And guess who they hated back in those days? In the Ben-Hur days, Rome,
The Jews. You talk about persecuted. Oh my God. So we'll go on with this story. Israel and America stand shoulder to shoulder in countering the threat of Iran, the prime minister said. We agreed that the Ayatollahs must not have nuclear weapons and also agreed that Iran's aggression in the region must be rolled back. I don't know how anybody could disagree with that. It's, there's been threats. They can probably get a nuclear weapon put together literally in months. Maybe they're even closer than that. And we have to keep that from happening. And what's going to occur? We don't know. What I do know is that with Israel and the United States working together in order to create a more solidified Middle East in these fights that are going on between Hamas and Israel, it puts a lot of strain on Iran and all of the other bad folks within that process. That's just what they're going to do, and that's how they do it. So if all of this can go on, we could make the world a better place, make it great again. Priority number one, make America great again. Priority two is help our allies to make the world great again. You're never going to fix everything. There's always going to be things that are going to burble up. That's just the way it is. But I think we've got a president that's focused and will do that. Speaking of focus, Nicole Wallace, one of my best friends over at MSNBC, she's talked about what the negotiations are with Zelensky, helping Zelensky, and how America wants to get paid back for the billions of dollars that have been put into that war. And he had a very common sense thing. I want to get 50% of your minerals so that we can get paid back, no cash out of your pocket, and we'll get this settled by having these minerals. Minerals are a big deal. Of course, they blow that off. And Nicole Wallace and her panel in this video, it's just classic.
We're now sending troops to Ukraine to protect minerals?
I don't know, but I will say that this echoes with a thing that I read or heard someplace in the last couple of days about Trump's increasingly serious interest in trying to annex Canada.
Okay, first of all, he doesn't know. He's heard it from some other people, and he's a chief political columnist from Puck News. I think they got the letter wrong on Puck.
Being about the minerals that Canada has. The mineral thing, somehow some weird minerals are in Trump's water right now, or there's some economist in his ear who's telling him about,
I doubt it's an economist.
Right.
It's
Well,
just a donor.
Some of those weird, there's some, it's like the kind of economists who are like gold bugs.
Crypto
nut. Or like these, they say, Peter Navarro was an economist, right? In theory? No?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
This is a serious story by serious journalists, the most deadly serious journalists at this network, about Trump sending troops to Ukraine and stealing their minerals.
Okay, I got to stop it. I'm sorry. I just have to say these things as the video goes on. Steal minerals? Sending the military there and stealing minerals? Did she really say that? There are people that are just stupid enough to believe this. I know people like that. That's not what is happening. He's negotiating a deal for the billions of dollars that we've spent on Ukraine to protect them from Russia. And she says that. Now watch this guy.
Yeah, and here's the thing. And if you look at, and I know you guys were talking about that Derek Adams matter earlier, but he, at this point in his career, Trump at this point in his career, he feels emboldened. He feels like he got away with a number of different things. When you look at the campaign, indicted 4 times, he has been impeached a couple times. There were a couple of assassination attempts on him. And if you look at where he is right now, he feels sort of invincible at this point.
Yes, he does. There's actually a syndrome like that. But he is out to get the job done. Again, he doesn't care. So continue with this You're going to love this. So Trump's going to do all of these things, but we got somebody that's going to tell you, no, that's not going to happen.
So you've seen a number of moves over the last month that have been stunning, that have been outside the norms, but that doesn't necessarily bother him.
Is it legal?
I mean, it doesn't matter if it bothers him. He's not going to be able to do that. I mean, there's certainly stuff they're doing right now that courts have said they can't.
Courts have said they can't, and they say that he's just barreling on, as one video earlier in the show. He's just barreling on. He can barrel on. You know why he can barrel on? One, he's a president. Two, most important one, when a case is started, there can be an appeal process. When the appeal is done, they continue until there's a decision made. That's why they do appeals. And Trump has appealed all of this stuff. All of these, the lawsuits are out of this world. I said long ago this was going to happen. If Trump gets in, before the election ever started, if Trump gets in, that's what we're going to have. Okay, two more things for today. Number one of the two, Canada. And the reason we need to take over and make Canada part of America, of the United States. Take a look at this story. Ottawa mandates banks to disclose diversity of top management. Banks and other financial institutions in Canada are now required to disclose information on their diversity programs to shareholders, specifically banks, insurance firms, and trust and loan companies, the biggest amount of money in any country. We gotta notify. Investors lack transparent and standardized information on the representation of women, Indigenous, First Nations, which means, by the way, they're the ones that were there, kind of like American Indians, before everybody else was, peoples, persons, and disabilities, and members of the visible minorities in senior leadership positions. Visible minorities. I don't have a problem with protecting the Indigenous. I don't have a problem with protecting people who are paralyzed, people who are blind, people who have all kinds of different situations. I don't have a problem with that. None whatsoever. But what I do have a problem with is when we get into the idea of color. Color is not a right. Color is just color. Now, I want to show you something here that I got on the website, and I didn't have time to make it a slide, so I decided to put it up as a piece of information from the website, and I'm going to show you this. This is the Canadian, as you can see up here. This is the Canadian website, Employment Equality Act. Short title, this is an act beside it as an Employment Equity Act. Purpose of the act. Purpose of the act is to achieve equality in the workplace so that no person shall be denied employment opportunities or benefits for reasons unrelated to ability, and in the fulfillment of that goal, to correct the conditions of disadvantage or employment experienced by women, Aboriginal peoples, persons with disabilities, are you ready? And members of visible minorities by giving effect to the principle that employment equity means more than treating persons in the same way, but also requires special measurements to accommodate the differences. It isn't about visible minorities. It shouldn't be. Then they have to have an interpretation and definitions of all of these people. You know, what's the Aboriginal people, like the Aborigines in Australia? Like the chairperson, what it means. Canadian Human Rights Tribunal means the Canadian Human Rights Commission established under Section 26 of the Canadian Human Rights Deal for the Commission. Compliance officers, designated groups, members of visible minorities. I mean, look at this. It goes on and on. Applications. How do we apply these rules? I mean, they are trying to control everything that goes on, and then they get to the employment equity, employer obligations. I'm not going to read all this to you because you've seen enough of it. But This is why we have the problem we have. This is why America's in the spot it's in, and Canada is in the same situation. So how do we get past this? Well, I'm not going to say it's simple, but Trump has started it, definitely has started it, and he's going to make a difference. I can almost assure you that that's going to happen. One final story before I go, and that is this whole thing with America and smart governors and dumb governors, and they all kind of filter. They filter through and you figure out who they are. You know, like the governor of Michigan. The governor of Pennsylvania, he's not stupid, he's just way liberal. But Ron DeSantis has come up with an idea. I think this is classic. Watch this.
Could property taxes in Florida be eliminated? Tonight, Governor Ron DeSantis supports the idea of making that a reality.
Yeah, property taxes fund local services like police, fire, and school, but now there are questions on what cities and counties can do if that funding disappears. News Channel 8's political reporter Ty Russell joins us now live in Tampa with the story. What a concept here, Ty.
Very interesting. It definitely has a lot of people talking. And let me tell you this, Josh. The Hillsborough County School Board manages roughly a $4.3 billion budget, and a bulk of it comes from property taxes. That's why tonight, a nonpartisan research firm says there should be changes to the tax code. However, getting rid of property taxes is not the option. In a post on X, Governor Ron DeSantis called property taxes oppressive and ineffective. He supports the idea of eliminating or reducing them, which would need voter approval.
Before this goes, property taxes is an onerous bill against you that produces nothing for you. If you pay taxes, sales taxes, for an example, you are getting the benefit of being able to buy something, and there can be taxes on that. It's about fairness. And maybe we don't do property taxes. Property taxes in Florida is high. Our little cabin it's almost 30 grand now a year. We continue.
As corporate income tax reforms that close loopholes to raise revenue, you could look at high valued real estate and maybe have different property tax rates for that. So
listen to what he just said. This is a Democrat. Maybe have higher tax rates with the people that have more money and buy more expensive properties. It's equal. If you've got a $10 million home, you would pay the same, and you pay the same taxes. Clearly, you're paying more in taxes. So you would support someone owning a bigger house or building a bigger house, wouldn't you? But they don't get it. Continue.
If you're buying a multi-million-dollar mansion, maybe that has a higher property tax rate.
Which local services would the governor like to cut? Police, fire, sewer, water, roads? He continued, City of Tampa is already operating on the lowest millage rates in the Tampa Bay area. Discretionary or non-essential spending is a very, very small percentage of our budget.
Yeah, well, there's probably, just terrible corruption that's going on there too. Who knows? I don't know. I really don't know. All right. I'm way past my time on the show, but I don't have to go away because nobody's following me on this network called Framers View. Here's the deal. I'm going to be gone for a few days. I don't know how long. It's all according to when I can get bail. No, I'm just kidding. Marie is having a major surgery tomorrow. I'm just going to share this so you understand why I'm not going to be here. She's getting surgery on her back. Okay. Well, she's having her spine fused from S1 all the way up to T10. That is a long ways. It's a 10-hour surgery. She's going to be pretty much out of it and off from the time the surgery is over until I don't know when. When I know that she's going to be safe and okay for me do this show for an hour each day at 1 o'clock Eastern time, I'll come back. But family comes first. So I won't be here for a little while. I'm hoping maybe by the end of the week, but I don't know. She's going to be in the hospital for 7 days, but I got to take care of things at the house, and I'm going to go to the hospital, make sure she's okay, and be with her and support her. So that's what is going on with that. But we'll find out how she's doing, and I hopefully will be back soon. To be able to see the shows, see other things that have gone on, I'm just going to pop this up while I'm talking about this, just so you have this. You can go to rumble.com/FramersView, all one word, and there you'll see my most recent shows. I think it's got about 30 shows on it, and it just, as I add shows, it puts up new ones, and older ones go away. But you can review any of those shows. It's got a date on each one of those, most of them. Every once in a while I forget to put the date on it, but it'll have that. And then hopefully I'll be back and you'll get a message that I'm coming back to the show. So that's it for today and for a few days. I can't describe to you how much I appreciate you being here. I'll be back as soon as I can to do the show. And until then, pray for my dear wife, Marie, and carry on.
Thanks for your support. Join the Framers View Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern.